Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts.
Yes, Professor Salt and Pepper. It's a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English.
Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location on your land.
Here's the cool part. Established Titles plants a tree with every order and works with global charities such as One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, all to support global reforestation efforts.
Cool perks are you could officially change the prefix of your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit cards or even things like your plane tickets. They even have a couples pack that come with adjoining plots of land.
Well, look, here's the deal, MK viewers. The first 200 people purchasing a title pack using our link will effectively be next to our plot within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a Lord or Lady with us, we can build our own little morning combat kingdom.
Established Titles makes an amazing last-minute gift, and they are actually running a Black Friday sale, their biggest sale of the year. Plus, if you use the code COMBAT with a K, you get an additional 10% off. So go to establishedtitles.com/combat to get your gifts now and help support the channel.
Listen to the King of Connecticut. He tells you that's establishedtitles.com/combat for an additional 10% off. Yeah.
Oh, man, just got my driver's license, but with my credit score, how am I ever going to have enough money to buy that sweet ride? Whoa, who are you?
Believe it or not, I'm actually your coworker from the future.
Hey, far out, man.
You're stuck in the past if you think you actually can't build your credit score.
I'll be honest, that's kind of hard, right?
It's not. All you have to do is download the MoneyLion app and get started by, let's say, applying for a credit builder loan.
A credit builder loan? Does that mean I can get some money and build my credit all at the same time? That sounds a little confusing.
Well, in fairness, you look confused about many things. But the good news is it's actually pretty simple. It helps build your credit when you repay the loan on time. The beauty, of course, is that you could use the money to start paying for the car or some of these pathetic dirty mags you like.
Wow, fresh dirty mags from this decade?
Yeah.
Hey, what's this MoneyLion app?
It's the only money app you're ever going to need. You can get instant cash advances, hacks from people who know how to money, or access offers from some of MoneyLion's partners, like on the insurance you're going to need for that sweet ride you're trying to get.
Right. So I should ask my parents to get it for me, right? Should I use their fax machine?
No, you can do it on your phone, and actually you're old enough to do it yourself, even though you're a pathetic loser.
Thanks, man. How do I dial for this app?
Well, you actually just need to use one of these kinds of phones, and all you have to do is search for the MoneyLion app in the App Store, or you can scan a QR code.
Great. And I can use this for investing, building credit? I bet MoneyLion can help me get that keg for the Moon Tower this weekend.
Probably, yes, but you'll need an ID for that.
Hey, man. Can you do it for me? No offense, dude, but you kind of look old and washed.
I'm trying to do you favors that actually improve your life, so no.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I'll trade you for this herb.
This is oregano.
Oh, man, I paid $40 for that.
Right. That's why I'm here to help.
Oh, yeah. I mean, can you feel that? Can you feel it right now? This is Morning Combat Holiday Mailbag Edition Friday. You're watching this on Friday, November 25th, the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, probably still full in effect for those that celebrate that. This is Brian Campbell. That's Luke Thomas. We did pre-record this, so in the space-time continuum, I have yet to have my turkey and cheap cranberry out of the can, which is really the only way to have it. But we've debated that up and down. This is Morning Combat, your only multi-award-winning combat sports show that's trying its best to take over your personal life. BC here, LT there. Luke Thomas, welcome into this holiday edition. Is your heart filled with holiday joy just as we record this a couple days out from my favorite holiday, brother?
Is my heart filled with joy for a few days off? Yes.
Okay, one can accept that. One can accept that. Happy holidays to you and yours, Luke. We thank all of our great people, Mikey Mormile, our fantastic producer from CBS Sports, all the great folks at Malka, Showtime that help make this show possible. But most importantly, you, the viewer. This is about us giving thanks back to you. We solicited out questions to our email address, to our Twitter accounts. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play with the bag, have a little fun with it, inflate it a little bit. I'm sure at our age, Luke, we can use that inflation. That's the kind of inflation we need right now, right?
The only inflation that really serves us personally.
Yes. All right. Luke, do we have to sell any? We don't have to sell any ads, right? I mean,
no, I think people know the drill. I mean, just to make sure we pump the email, right? morningcombat@gmail.com to reach the show for anything else. Y'all know showtime.com, all that good stuff. But
yeah, all those people that pay us. And, we got great holiday merch, too, for Black Friday today. All right, so head on over to
good point. Yes, morningcombat.store. Morningcombat.store.
If you didn't get in, put your email address on that homepage. You can get the Black Friday savings coming your way. All right, this one is about the people. Luke, it's my favorite holiday. You think it's a little bit overrated. I don't know. I mean, you did grow up in a high school that had a big football tradition, but the Thanksgiving thing didn't catch you? I mean, it didn't bite into you?
The thing is, my family likes Thanksgiving more than any other holiday. I do like Thanksgiving more than many holidays, to be quite clear about it. Thanksgiving was fun in college where you'd been gone for a while and then everyone went home and everyone kind of checked in on how everyone else was doing or whatever. And then everyone goes out on the nights that you had off or whatever. But like, I got to be honest, man, just pound for pound, Christmas is hard to beat for me. And for my wife's family too. Like Christmas is huge where she's from. And I mean, it's just a little bit different.
Dude, Christmas is like the New York Yankees of holidays. It's really hard to, it's to chip away at it from whether you're celebrating the Christ side of it or you just want to be with your family and make everybody happy and open gifts. And once you have kids, obviously that brings back the kid in you in so many ways. So I can appreciate that. But, you mentioned everybody comes back. That's always been a huge part of Thanksgiving. It's not just the meal, family time, the high school football game against Ansonia. We're taking those Chargers down this year. I just know it. And it's like, I was that guy, Luke, who didn't get to go away to college. So Thanksgiving weekend and the night before that Wednesday night, which where I come from, it's a holiday called Valley New Year. Fantastic, Luke. Everybody comes back. All the people that think they're too good for their hometown comes back and fills up the crappy local bars. Dude, that was an event from age 19 to 26. Dude, that was an event, right?
26? No, I didn't participate that long. You hung around. You were a gross townie, it turns out.
Yeah, well, my town is full of townies. It's so you're not really all that gross at that age. But I mean, you could at least relate to that, Luke, right? Yes, in Valdosta, when all your
Marietta, I would go back. My brother graduated from Valdosta High School, but then we moved, and then I went to Marietta High School for my sophomore, junior year. So I would go back to Marietta for a few years. That's what I did.
All right. You and I have debated now, 3 years into the show, many times our love for Thanksgiving and our favorite side dishes and all that. But let's hit off our first question from Daz Riccio. We do have to remember not everybody's a P1 here. They may be late to the party. So Luke, refresh their memory. Question number 1 here. What is your number 1 Thanksgiving dish or food? And conversely, what is your least favorite? And also, what would you replace your least favorite with? It does not have to be a Thanksgiving food, according to Daz. So it's a 3-part question regarding the centerpiece on Thursday. Luke, speak to your life, please.
All right. So here's where I'm lucky. Remember, my brother and my sister used to own a restaurant together. They sold it. They got out of the business, but they had a successful one for about 15 years. They had a nice one going. Luckily, they closed it right before the pandemic hit. So all's well that ends well. But the point I bring that up to say is that I'm very lucky and I'm very spoiled because my family can cook in ways that I'm just going to say most families cannot. I think it's a pretty fair way to put it. So I normally never have to worry about things I don't like. In terms of things I like, my number 1 go-to, dude, I'm a mac and cheese guy. That's
a Thanksgiving tradition? Is you serious?
Let me say, it's not necessarily the centerpiece. I get that. It's not. You can't plan a meal around mac and cheese. I get that. But I just feel like pound for pound, every bite of that mac and cheese, if it's done correctly, it just delivers in the most impressive of ways. If we're talking about centerpieces, I'm going to go back to, I think, an old answer, which is if you've never had, and I'm going to put a caveat here, properly cooked fried turkey. Fried turkey. If you've never had fried turkey,
let me do it. Let me do an impression of you from our first year of it. What? You never had fried turkey? What?
Dude, once you've had fried turkey, you realize that everyone else has been fucking with your life for as long as you existed. They're not even on the same ballpark of deliciousness. So that would be my centerpiece. Obviously, some good gravy on top of it really drives that home. That's going to be my answer for that. But of course, just pound for pound, it's going to be mac and cheese. Things I would not want to eat. I'll tell you this.
Before you transition, let me ask you this, okay? Because where you're putting mac and cheese right now is like not the centerpiece, but maybe the MVP that keeps it all together. To me, that's stuffing. I will not have a bite that doesn't have stuffing and cranberry in that bite. Are you like me where you'll mesh everything on the plate, but every bite's got to have a little representation of each area?
Sometimes, but stuffing is for peasants. Cranberry sauce is for peasants.
No.
Just don't. Both of those are trash. But I will say this: I'd eat both of those before I eat someone's Brussels sprouts, fucking whatever.
Yeah.
Just a low class food for raccoons. I mean, can we just be honest about that? That's just garbage food. It doesn't taste. Oh, but we blanch ours and we fry ours. Yeah, you got to blanch and fry that thing into oblivion.
Yeah, it tastes like shit.
Tastes like anything. Yeah, it's gross. Yeah. It's gross. So that's my answer to get the fuck out of there with that one.
All right, great.
BC, you?
Well, let me just hit you first. I've said it before. My number one, the dish or food. Like I'm not a turkey guy. I'll put a little bit on my plate. But the centerpiece for me is the meat pie, Luke, and I've come to learn that that's a French Canadian tradition from my going back.
Is that like shepherd's pie?
Quebecian and Vermont people. So it's a crusted pie that has what looks to be ground beef seasoned.
Yes, shepherd's
but really
pie, 100%. Dude, shepherd's pie
not
is
shepherd's
amazing.
pie. Shepherd's pie has like mashed potatoes and vegetables. Meat pie basically has pork, beef, and chicken kind of mixed together with some heavy sweet seasonings and that perfectly crispy crust. It's not too far from shepherd's pie, but it's something completely different. Okay. And once you've had it, like my wife never grew up with it, tried it once and was like, this is the most disgusting thing ever. But if you've had it, if it's in your blood, if you're a Quebecois, you get that shit. Okay. But what's my least favorite? I'd have to go yams or turnip, you know?
Yeah. I'm not a big yams or turnip guy either. No.
Yeah.
Dude, my buddy's Iranian. This isn't so much like Thanksgiving related. They just eat it all the time. His family would take radishes and then just eat it like an apple.
That's weird.
I'd be like, dude, that's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life.
I know there's people that do that with onions, lemons. That's, whatever. If that's your thing,
Jeffrey Dahmer and co. That's right.
Yeah, for sure. They say, what would you replace it with? I want to give this answer because I go to shout out to Uncle Tony Campbell. I go to his every year on Thanksgiving, and Aunt Cheryl makes a lasagna because one of her kids doesn't eat the traditional Thanksgiving. So lasagna, by the way, is my favorite food of all time. So when I am able to replace whatever I don't want already on the Thanksgiving plate with lasagna, you got a happy BC right here, Luke. Do you have it? Do you make any weird replacements?
I see. Again, I don't really ever have to because we don't ever eat. I'm very lucky. We don't ever eat poorly with that. I will say if I'm at someone else's house and I got to do some replacements, I don't mind a little green bean casserole. Little green bean casserole is all right, man. You can do something with that, you know?
Yeah, I'm into that. My mom made a great one of that. But, the 3 F's is always what defines Thanksgiving to me. Food, family, and football. It's going to the game Thanksgiving morning and hoping you can finally
get World Cup this time.
Yep. And then, of course, the trio of NFL games after. And don't forget, Luke, along with the video game tournaments, the backyard family football game every year is it's a standard, Luke. And it's competitive as heck, even though there's a good mixture of young kids, old people. And, I've had some serious. Who could forget the bloody toe game, Luke, from 2004 when I rallied us back in the second half?
You and Kurt Schilling?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, shout out to Snarky Head Ginger. She'll appreciate that one. All right, let's keep this show rolling here. We got a big variety of questions here. Mikey, I'm just going to shout out what I like here and you can adjust. But here we go. Let's go over to Wharton Blake. He has a question related to combat that's aimed at you, Luke. He says, at what weights would you set the weight classes in MMA, adding or taking away any divisions as you please? They have the same question for me on boxing, but I want to stay on MMA because you and I've debated this through the years where you want more weight classes. I come from boxing where there's 17 and it sucks the horn. I want less weight classes. But what would the amendments you would make right now to improve the sport if you could by adjusting the weight class?
No, I wouldn't make a ton of change. Because I get the point, especially as you get higher in the weight, the fighters start sucking more, and so you want to make some constraints around who gets invited to that party by virtue of that. So what I would say is on the women's side, it already exists, but I think we need to think about straw weight. Well, we have straw weight, atom weight at 105. I think that's a burgeoning weight class that's eventually going to make its way to the UFC. So I would add that. That's one.
Do you
Eventually,
think Lomachenko comes out of retirement, Luke, to fight in her preferred division?
That's right. That's right. Atom weight.
Does she come out of retirement for that?
Oh, for atom weight?
Yeah.
No, she's past 40. Like, it's too late. Yeah.
I think she's approaching 40. That's what I think.
I think she's 40. Like, she'll be 40 soon. Anyway, on the men's side, I wouldn't change much. You got 125, 135, 145, 155, then that's where I change. Then I go 165, 175, 185, and then 205, and then heavyweight. So the only real change I'm making is I'm not doing the 15-pound jump between lightweight and welter. I'm making it still 10, then bumping welter up 5 more pounds, and then making that allotment therein.
All right. I get that if you go 10, 10, 10, and then suddenly you have this bigger gap, it's inevitably going to not be fair to certain guys who are sort of in the middle, but that's sort of how it works. You either want to go crazy and have a million weight. I mean, we have 17 in boxing, and they're trying to add bridger weight, which is just an unnecessary 18th.
I'll never forget when we sat down with Hasim Rockman. I'm like, "What's your goals in the sport?" He's like, "Yo, I'm trying to be the bridger weight champ." I'm like, "Wow, that's red flag, buddy. That's red flag territory."
Greg Hardy's gonna send you to hell one day for that. Oh wait, he just did last weekend. All right, Luke. My question on that, this could be for boxing or heavyweight, which is why the bridger weight came about. So specifically in MMA. It seems that heavyweight cut limit of 265, which I think every other promotion, as far as I can remember, has also adopted, has been to eliminate that early UFC vision of like little guy fighting fat guy, right? But that was back when there were no weight classes anyway. Do you think that stands for many years to come where, I don't know if it's Dana, what is this, some great big fat person? There's a lot of great big fat persons who can still fight. This seems discriminatory against the big bone folks. Will this stand forever, you think?
Well, some commissions have an allowance for super heavyweight. I've seen it. You can fight super heavyweight where you can fight into the 3s. If they wanted to add that on occasion, like getting commission approval or whatever, then fine. But otherwise, I think the 265 limit basically serves a pretty legitimate and helpful function.
Okay.
Don't you?
Okay. Yes. I mean, yes. But I don't know. You would need, it's not just, hey, what if we have one amazing 320 pounder that has nowhere else to go? But you would need to be able to fill out a division. I mean, look at the
Remember,
UFC's
I've talked to matchmakers before. In order to make a division work, they need at least 20 people.
Yeah.
20 people to make a division work.
As we found out with women's featherweight, for example, it's just not there. It's just not there.
But I've seen in Hawaii, for example, they've had like when Icon and Sport and Super Brawl used to exist. These are like precursors to, well, actually, some of them were post Rumble on the Rock, but they had super heavyweight classes, and it worked.
Okay, there you go. All right, let's go over to the apathetic Lawler. I don't know if he's talking about Robbie here, but he's got a question. They said, if Dana told you to make a fight that had the possibility to sell 2 million or more pay-per-view buys, what would it be? And they want one answer for active fighters only.
Oof.
And one that potentially could include retired ones coming back out of retirement. And they threw out a couple suggestions. You want the suggestions or you just want to field this, Luke?
Let me hear the suggestions.
Conor versus Islam, Conor Habib 2, or Habib versus Islam. All right, apathetic Lawler. Good luck on that one. But your thoughts on what? I mean, we've had this debate regarding John Jones and Francis Ngannou. I say it's the biggest fight UFC can make for the heavyweight title. Put it in Raiders Stadium. We do have people saying, hey, guys, neither one has been, John had been a consistent pay-per-view draw, never spectacular, but consistent. Lawler has a very small footprint in the pay-per-view space overall I'm sorry, Ngannou does, to be fair, not Lawler. Do you think, though, that fight is in this conversation, that if promoted right, if there's everything you'd want that could fuel it, that it could get to 2 million, or am I crazy?
You're crazy. But let me ask you this question, and you're going to say, oh, no, they wouldn't allow it because he's too old. But the Nevada Commission will allow just about anything. I mean, let's just be honest about that. Like, they're not a great commission, okay? What if the UFC finally convinced and found a way to get it sanctioned? I'm not doing a bit here. Think about this for a second. What if the UFC got Mike Tyson to make his MMA debut? Right?
Wow.
Right? It's not, it's crazy, but it's not the craziest thing when you really begin to think about how he's still in shape. He just had this exhibition not too long ago against Roy Jones Jr. They would probably give him some other kind of very beatable opponent.
Well,
dude, I think Mike Tyson.
Forget about saying beatable opponent. How about if I insert a Paul brother? What does that do to your scenario?
I mean, that would definitely put. I mean, wouldn't that be over 2 million buys? It would be over 2 million buys, wouldn't it? Like, whether you again, this is not a question of do you like the fight or is it a good fight? Just that it sells 2 million buys. Mike Tyson making his pro debut in the UFC and MMA, by the way, alone might do it, although probably not. But then this kind of other component probably puts it over the edge. Yeah.
I mean, I think Mike Tyson, that's when he came back and fought Roy Jones a couple years ago, was the biggest surprise I ever thought, would happen. I thought if anybody was done, it was that guy because he understood so much about what went wrong and keeping that demon inside of him that comes out and fights crazy, but he pulled it off. He was in great shape. It was insane. But that casual audience that both MMA and boxing promoters are always, dreaming of cashing into, the kind that get you to the 2.4 million for Conor Habib or the 4.4 million buys for what was that? Was that Manny Pacquiao? Wait,
yes.
And also Conor versus Floyd did in that area as well. 4.6 and 4.4 million, which is just ridiculous. Really, it's a ridiculous amount of buys. Mike Tyson's fans, meaning people who are now in their 40s and 50s, but grew up with him as an absolute phenomenon. I mean, I almost think that audience is limitless if you can get them hooked. Now, just getting them hooked on the freak show, what would it look like thing, I think is a lot. I remember ahead of that Roy Jones fight, a lot of people from my past going, "Oh my God, are you into this fight?" Like, I didn't even know they were into it, but that's the last remaining dinosaur that can pull back everybody. You put him against a Paul brother, yeah, you're going to get 2 million buys. Look, you're going to do it. You're
all right, but current fighters, this is hard. I don't know. Like, someone asked me this question the other day, BC, which was, how would you grade the UFC's year? Now, you would not give it a bad grade. It was a good year. In many ways, it was a good year. But they didn't have any truly blockbuster next level event. They didn't have any 1 million pay-per-view buy, holy shit, tear the house down, biggest thing in sports that weekend kind of moment. So, like, part of that is not because the UFC are bad promoters. They're probably the best promoters in the game, but that there's just not a lot of available permutations that make that work. I guess you could say 2 million Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. Does that get? Okay, I don't think that gets 2 million.
That would not get 2 million. That is the type of interesting sort of reach outside of the box that this question gives you that chance to do. But I do want to stay active fighters and say it like this. It's like it's part of the problem. I mean, look, first of all, when speaking of this year, if you would have told me ahead of time, hey, BC, John Jones and Conor McGregor will not compete this year, I would have been surprised, right? So I would have thought that they had those chances to do huge fights with both, and they would have been huge in any scenario for both. But when you look at it, you can lose too easily in this game. It's really hard to build long win streaks. And when somebody does kind of break through, like Usman recently, and builds a long win streak, or Volkanovski now, it's not a guarantee that they're going to be a slam dunk, mainstream American audience guarantee to buy. You sometimes need that McGregor hook or just the greatness that John Jones had. And like we said, even with John Jones at the peak of his game, he wasn't an overwhelming pay-per-view brand. I mean, look, to be fair, neither was GSP or Anderson Silva. Like, they came up and peaked for certain big fights, but neither ever entered that Floyd and Manny level where no matter who they're fighting, it's 1 million buys for a stretch. Remember that stretch? Like, no matter who they're fighting, just to see them. Now that's pre-developed illegal streaming and all that, which wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Okay. But within fighters that are still there, I don't know if you can make one without Conor. As much as I want Jones and Ngannou to be the biggest thing ever, you might still need Conor. Now, Conor Habib too, if you could take him out of retirement, even without Conor coming back and getting a win, nostalgically would get you a shit ton of buys. But how much do you think that idea that apathetic Lawler threw out there, which I've thrown out and people hate to hear it, But if Islam can keep winning, or forget if he can keep winning, as soon as you can do it, Islam Makhachev versus Conor McGregor, which essentially is trying to play up 1,000,000% on the Khabib-Conor rivalry, does that actually reach something very large? Or does that just come out, it happens, Conor gets dominated, and then it's like, okay, it did 1.2. That's pretty damn good, man. We don't see that too often, but that's not 2 million buys, you know?
Yes, it's just, I think the latter is what you're talking about. It does well, it matters, it's relevant, but it's not, man. To sell 2 million pay-per-view buys. I mean, we're talking about what, a handful in the history of combat sports have ever sold that. So I just don't think there's any. I mean, maybe I have a poverty of imagination, but I don't think there's any fight between active fighters where you could reasonably get them, because they're not too far apart in weight class, that you get 2 million buys. I don't think it exists right now.
All right. I think there's one other one that is here's my best answer for you. If you can't get Khabib, and if you can't build up a Conor Islam rivalry quickly to be anywhere close to what the Khabib Conor rivalry was, what about one night only super fight, Conor versus GSP? Does that have the fuel and star power to do a shit ton?
I think if Conor came back and looked good, maybe.
Because you would be pulling on an older audience that you regularly remind me, like the people that were diehard MMA fans in 2008, 9, 10. A lot of those people aren't around anymore.
No, most of them are gone. And then, by the way, folks watching now, most of you will be gone in 5 years too. That's just how the sport goes. So
there it is. All right, there we've said it. What is the biggest women's fight you can make? It's in MMA. It's Rousey Carano, right? Still.
Yes. I mean, obviously Nunes versus Shevchenko is an infinitely more quality fight, but
Right.
it wouldn't do the buys, right?
No, it wouldn't. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Let's get out of combat for a second, Luke, and welcome in Campbell Parrish, my brethren here, my cousin Parrish. If you could wipe your memory. By the way, I get a lot of hate for my Wakanda Forever was awesome rant. Are you guys serious? It was awesome. Like, really?
Is that because there was a lot of black people in it?
I mean, was this our P1 Jan 6 audience that is taking issue here? If you could
again, in fairness, the movie does seem like it's polarizing. Like people either come out with your view that it was like fucking great, or people come out being like, man, that was such a letdown. And it doesn't, it tends to go like my friend who told me he didn't like it that much. He's black. And he was like, it's not that good. So I'm kidding everyone out there, but
let me just
it does seem
amend
to be
that
polarizing.
quickly on Wakanda. I felt like I mentioned it yesterday or whenever we did, I felt some like sort of like, oh my God, I'm a kid again in the theater and I've lost track of time and space. But some of that is because it felt a little bit like episode 4 of Star Wars. And I know that's a repeated pattern and trope in a lot of these fantasy movies, superhero movies, to try to mimic that great storytelling and all that. But there's a lot of that crossover. And also the new villain is badass as shit. So watch it for yourself. I looked it up. I think the Rotten Tomatoes approval rating right now is like 84%. So I mean, that's
pretty good.
All right, but Luke, if you could wipe your memory and experience, if you could wipe your memory standing up, I mean, that's the preferred way, right?
I mean, that's the only way to get it truly clean. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you're 4 years old and experience watching a movie for the first time, what movie would it be and why? You know,
man, this answer is so fucking easy. This answer is so fucking. Oh, actually, you know what? I have an answer, and then like a honorary mention. So the answer is Predator. I mean,
whoa,
dude, Predator is like, I just can't overstate how.
Right.
Big
okay, where were you? Where were you the first time you saw it? What was the setting, the age, all that? Give me
my
the
dad.
First...
This is true. So this must have been like 1989 or so, 88, because the movie came out in 87. My dad had a copy of it on Betamax. You remember that shit?
Your dad had Betamax, dude.
Dude, my dad. I mean, dude, look who I am. Ultimate contrarian. You think my dad's gonna buy VHS? And my dad's argument, which was correct at the time, which is, dude, most of the world uses Betamax, which is true. Most of the world did.
Most of the world drives on the other side of the road, Mr. Thomas. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
I know.
Yeah.
Do you remember going to the video stores back in the like mid to late 80s, and that some places would have Betamax, and they had the giant containers because the tapes were actually much bigger.
It's like, hey, let's invent a disc that's really big and it's so expensive and no one's going to have it a month after it comes out. Yeah, let's call it.
All right. But the answer is that was the first R movie my dad ever let me watch. Probably way too early. I was like 9 or so, maybe 10 at most, something like that. So I remember that, but I didn't fully appreciate it until I watched it like 20 times later over the course of the next couple of years. And I was like, holy shit, this movie is just better than any other movie I've ever fucking seen. Now, granted, that's from a 10-year-old's perspective, but even now, like AMC, American Movie Classics, will air that. It's obviously gotten a lot of acclaim for being both like a sort of like action movie, but it's also kind of like a slasher flick at the same time.
And science fiction. Yeah.
And science fiction, because this sort of like secret villain is killing everyone one by one. So it's got a lot of different levels to it. It's peak Schwarzenegger. It's peak 80s. It's peak machismo. It's just fucking amazing. I wish I could get the same first high, so to speak, that I got from it the first time. But the honorable mention would be The Matrix. I remember watching that by myself one time. When I first went to see it in 1999, and my friends wanted to go to the movies. It was right off campus, and they couldn't go. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go. And I went, and I was like, I got to tell everyone about this movie.
Okay, those are great answers, man. Wow. Okay, because Predator, I had a similar, it was Jeff Hurd's birthday party at his house, and we watched it in like 88 on VHS. And dude, I was like scared during it because like you don't know, now that you know everything, you can look back and watch it a different way. But when you didn't know who that monster was, and it was like, that was a pretty gnarly movie for 4th or 5th grade in terms of blood and stuff. So yeah, but you're right, dude. That like I was changed. I was chilled after watching that. That was intense, man. Similar to Matrix. But if I ask myself like what, theater experiences moved me the most, it's like Karate Kid, I didn't see Star Wars Episode 4 in the theater, but it'd be hard not to pick that for the answer. Dude, how about Fight Club was one too, because I was so effed up while watching it in the theater that for like the next 6 hours, I felt like I was in the movie still. You ever have that happen?
I still haven't seen it front to back.
Really?
We've been over this. Don't you remember? I've seen it. I've seen every scene, but out of order because I never sat down and watched it front to back. Yeah.
Some people can, have the big reveal happen and be like, oh, I saw that coming all along. I sometimes have a way of like just staying in line with the movie, and that movie, like, that was a crazy ass movie. I mean, to be fair, people are gonna shit on this, dude. I was so fired up for Blair Witch movie. Do you remember how like the guerrilla advertising campaigns?
I was at boot camp when it came out. I've never seen it.
All right, so when we went to see it, because even though the internet's around then, that was like what 97. Even though the internet's around, I didn't have the internet at home. Like it wasn't everywhere. It wasn't like now. It wasn't on your phone, and I wasn't sure entering the theater if this was a documentary or if this was a movie. Like, there was some of that because of the way they were really smart in how they promoted this movie to really leave questions. And I went there that night and I was freaked out while watching it, and I was moved. It's not a movie that you can rewatch a lot. And there were a lot of people who were with me that night in the theater were like, man, this is the stupidest movie ever. I could predict it all. I saw it coming. I don't know. I got enveloped in that. Dude, I think that's a brilliant ass movie. I don't think people realize how different it was and how cool it was. But Luke, my answer is going to be Half Baked, because I have not laughed in a theater. Austin Powers Part 2 is up there too in terms of just theater physical laughter. Dude, Half Baked was one of the greatest in movie experiences of all time. I mean, it was like that humor was just so on time to be a dirtbag and be like 19 and be watching that in the theater. It's just
the hardest I've laughed in the theater was when I watched this was in Valdosta, was when I watched Dumb and Dumber with my brother in the movie theaters. That was, I mean, piss your pants level of crying. It was truly one of the most joyous memories. So I might throw that log onto the fire as well.
Who do you think won that movie? Lloyd Christmas or the other guy?
I was always a Jim Carrey guy, but Jeff Daniels really is such a well-rounded and funny actor when he needs to be. They were pretty equal, man. Like that movie doesn't work if they're not relatively equal, right? If it's one kind of shit on the other,
right? Kind of like
that's
MK?
Right. There has to be a certain level of balance one way or the other.
Wow. It took me a while. It took me a few documentaries to realize that, Luke. Okay. Yeah. All right. Hey, let's stay off combat for a second. This is Jesus 28. Would you rather be able to play every instrument in the world really well, or be fluent in every single language? Luke, I feel like this is a question that would keep you up at night debating.
This is an easy answer.
Really?
Easy. Yeah. I'll take every language fluency.
I knew you were going to take that. Absolute bullshit, Luke.
Why? What do I need to play the drums and the fucking flute for? I don't give a shit.
Do you realize if you were one of those geniuses, and I know, there's a lot of them, right? There's people that can just pick up any instrument They know music so well. They can play it off their ear. They could just do anything with anything. They're brilliant. They are the geniuses of this world. My mind does not work that way. Dude, forget. I would trade the ability to speak for the ability to play every single instrument awesomely.
Oh, I wouldn't give $5 for that. I mean, low priority for me, dude. The level of, I just can't explain to you, man. This is the best way I can tell you. As someone who's like trying to struggle through a language, when you begin to get a little bit of depth in that language, it is unlocking a new world. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like, well, it's just saying the same things I would say in English, but it doesn't work that way. Language is a passport to culture. Language is a passport to new relationships, new people, new identities, new places in ways that simply getting it translated for you, it doesn't give you access, dude. Like when I go down to Colombia and I'm with my wife's family, when I speak a little bit of Spanish, it's hard to explain to you to really feel it. Doors open for you and you get invited places and things. There's so much more access to things by virtue of having any kind of proficiency in language that is just mind altering. And so to have the ability to speak Chinese, the ability to speak Japanese, the ability to speak Arabic, these languages that cover vast swaths of human population, you would be unlocking access to people and cultures and histories and places that you just can't get without that language proficiency. Wow. You just can't get.
You gave the intelligent world culture answer. I gave the ignorant American living in his own bubble answer. But I think the root or the end game, if you will, in both of our answers involves having a superhuman ability to collect more punani. So if Jesus 28's question came with a time machine and we could go back to age 22 with this question, which of us does better?
If I was 22, the answer would be instruments.
That's what I'm saying. I still think even if you could go to any country and talk your way into a session, Luke, I feel like I could just play the international language of love on guitar, Luke, and just, you know what I'm saying?
You could. If I was 22 and I was interested in just showing off for people and trying to get as much, of the sweet tang as possible, being able to jam on the guitar is very valuable. But now that I'm older a little bit, man, I wish I could speak more languages. That's a major life regret.
I wish I could be in a band like The Band where, there's not one
Take
true leader.
Off, Annie.
Yeah, but everybody could kind of play and sing and write me. I want to be in one of those collectives where I could jump around on instrument. I mean, look, I would, man, if I could just reinvent myself and maybe be born in 1952 and come up in the 60s and 70s, Luke, you know what I would do? I would just learn how to play every instrument and then I'd just bang and bell bottoms. You know what I mean? Just,
Well, dude, half of MK revolves around us wishing we could be different people than we are, so we could have fucked more chicks as we grew up.
That's a generalization, to be fair. Okay, that's not really the reality of the situation. All right, let's go back into combat, Luke, because that's what we're the best in the world at. I've got a guy named Johnny Ruckus, and he says, Luke, should judges score rounds 9-9 if nothing of note happens? I think what he really means to say 10-10 is what he seems to say.
Yes.
So, Luke, you know that I'm friends with some boxing judges that are very high profile and that they tell me they are heavily dissuaded from ever doing a 10-10 round by most state commissions, like heavily dissuaded. I don't care if no one threw a punch, pick a winner. In MMA, though, it's a little bit different. Would you feel a 10-10 round could help the sport rather than hurt it?
When you say help, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, that's why he's asking. Should more?
But we have to define the
do
terms of help. So does help mean that you finally have a scorecard that you feel like more accurately reflects what happened in the fight? Then I think a 10-10 is probably helpful. However, one of the potential downsides that you have to consider is this could fuck up scorecards in a way that we're not really ready for or accepting, and creates many like imagine if we had 3 or 4x, and this is probably not true, but just imagine we had 3 or 4x the number of draws. I don't think people would be thinking of that as help, right? So if it had that kind of an effect, that doesn't help the sport really in any kind of meaningful way. So in theory, I definitely get what people are talking about. It's dude, what the fuck happened in that round? I'm going to give it to one person based off a bullshit punch that blah, 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 blah. It's the flimsiest of margins. I get being apprehensive about that. But this is what I always say, dude. This is what I fucking always say. When the UFC goes to places where they self-regulate, or really any promotion, any major promotion, they are in a place where they self-regulate, they need to take advantage of that and start experimenting with the rules. I talk about this all the time, BC, which is the NFL between seasons, because they are not regulated by some government entity. Of course, there are other ways that rules get changed and they have their own procedures for it. But if they want to make the goalposts wider, or if they want to change the kickoff rule, and the person has to catch it on the 40 or whatever kind of rule, they can tinker with the format between seasons and then see what happens and then keep it or adjust it as a consequence. They can make adjustments. MMA, because we've just given the rules to the Department of Motor Vehicles, basically, we have to sit there and take a number and wait, and it takes forever and it's uneven. And we just don't know. We need people who have the liberty and the freedom to experiment to do just that.
I think you need an entirely new scoring system that's not 10-9 boxing based and is more based on, I mean, look, how amateur wrestling is scored on points you acquire throughout by doing things. Could there be a future in MMA for that?
So I asked the famous former UFC commentator, Olympic gold medalist, rest in peace, Jeff Blatnick, before he died, that exact question. And of course, he came from wrestling where, 5 points for a major throw, 2 points for a takedown, 1 point in college anyway for an escape or a push out or whatever. And he said, no, you would never want to do that. And his argument was, because MMA involves so many disparate composite sports of sambo and judo and wrestling, and kickboxing, blah, 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 all the different stuff, that you want some creative expression as a consequence. And if you put a point system on it, you would lose the creative expression.
That's a good point.
So I think he's probably right.
And you could also see people try to build leads with one dominant thing they're good at. And just, if a takedown's worth, 5 points, just constantly takedown, back up. You
right.
Wouldn't want a manipulation of the game, even further. If we already sometimes don't like when people are too wrestling heavy. All right. That's a fair statement right there. Let's keep the combat questions rolling. I've got a guy named OG Blackfoot. Now, do you think that the foot became that way over time due to abuse and disuse, Luke? Or how do you think, what happened here? Because remember in what's that Adam Sandler movie, Mr. Deeds, when Steve Buscemi's character had that black toe foot issue? You know what I'm talking about?
I've never seen Mr. Deeds.
Oh, it's so underrated. It really is. I mean, it's not up to the level.
That.
It's not up to the level of the Waterboy and the Billy Madison and the Happy Gilmore classics, but it's for second generation Sandler. It's really good. Okay. But here's the question from good old OG Blackfoot. Aside from footwork, what can Izzy do to mitigate the power of Poatan? Alex is so good and close. Clinching seems to be dicey. Wow. Really? Gonna add that at the end? Luke, I assume they're talking about a potential rematch here for the middleweight championship. What can Izzy do to mitigate the power of Pereira?
How do you mitigate the power of Pereira aside from either blocking a strike before it lands or stopping him from throwing it? That you can't. I mean, his power is his power.
OG wants us to say, well, how about stomping him till he gets a Blackfoot? That's what he wants us to say.
Yeah, I don't think you could stomp his way through. I mean, for me, I said this before. I'm kind of repeating myself here a little bit. Izzy's footwork is great. His lateral movement is great. And if he was compromised by the calf kicks, and that was what it was. But I'm still going to go back to it. I like Izzy as a person and as a champ more than I've liked most fighters, by a long stretch. But at the same time, I try to recognize his weaknesses as best I can. And I do think the fact that he doesn't have offensive wrestling in his back pocket in a better way, it really hurt him in that fight. I know everyone wants to make it about the calf kicks.
Yeah.
But I tend to think if you could reliably get the takedown, people are like, well, how do you know how good Pereira's takedown defense is? You're right. To that point, it's somewhat unclear. But to the extent it's been tested, it hasn't looked very good. And so I tend to think that was something there for the taking. And I think that's a great way to mitigate it. Now, if he had great takedown defense, then I really don't know what the answer is. If he's like, Izzy's hard to take down against the fence anyway. But yeah, if you have a better answer, I'd love to hear it.
Well, first, Mikey dead wronged me. Well done, Mikey. In mid-time, Adam Sandler had the black foot. Buscemi had the weird eyes, the crazy eyes. Excuse me, Luke. And the Butler, remember he hits. Oh, you didn't see the movie? Okay, yeah. Spoiler alert. Regarding Adesanya, though, Luke. Yeah, I mean, you know what worked against Pereira? Pereira, yeah. Exactly what Izzy did for 4+ rounds, with the exception of getting slowed by the calf kick. So it's a major exception, right? Because, Izzy to hang close enough, and Izzy wasn't trying to be a counterpuncher. He wasn't hanging back, dude. He was coming. I mean, look, that was that fight was a fun fight, right? It was a good ass fight. And I think that's what's fueling Izzy's confidence. I talked about when Ariel interviewed him after the fight, and people are like, "Hey, BC, he was delusional." No, I just think he's really confident and knows that for the most part, he's got Pereira figured out. Seriously, for the most part, he does.
For the most part, he does. That's true.
But trying to execute that is where it's not easy, because Alex, let's give him credit, is uniquely great. Some of the things we don't have full answers yet. We've had that debate before, but he's uniquely great in some very scary areas that makes it hard. But Luke, would you identify as legally as an Adesanya simp or just an appreciator?
I mean, it depends that's a better question for other people. I'm sure that they would accuse me of being a simp because, they read at a third grade level. So
yeah, but when Ariel came at him, like, Israel, people are mad at me for saying this, but that stoppage was bad, blah, blah, blah. That was very simpy. Okay.
I didn't see that. I didn't think it was a bad stoppage. Did you?
No, it was right on. It was fine, dude. The guy's hanging over with his, he's getting lit up. I mean, it's just, we all want every fight, and we want every fight to be a no until they're dead. But I mean, look, which reminds me, if you haven't seen replays of like really big boxing matches from like the 40s, 50s, 60s lately, dude, they were way more brutal back then. You know what I'm saying? Like, in terms of like, you're knocked down, but you're back up. There's no checking system. If you're back up, you're back up, and they send you back out there. And, depending on how far you go back, sometimes boxers were allowed to stand way closer to the down fighter than the neutral corner idea. So it's like all that stuff changed over the years, like for a major reason, right? It's already brutal enough. You don't need these, built-in things right there. Even in a championship fight, even in the 5th round, if somebody's just getting lit up and they're not firing back, they're trying to defend, but they're just when your body language is like mannequin, dude, Pinocchio, like you're going to get stopped by a referee. It's just what it is,
Yeah. I mean, you can make combat sports to have more finality. You can go back to 15 rounds in boxing and stuff like that, but you're just going to get a lot more people hurt. So like,
they're going to give away their career in one night. A lot of people will.
That's right. I mean, so like you kind of have to sacrifice a little bit of direct clarity for health and safety. And that getting that line right is not easy. But pushing it more towards health and safety is long-term much better.
Yeah. Luke, how would you rate our questions from our fans up to this point out of a 10-point must system?
I give it a solid 8.5, maybe 9.
Okay. That's
pretty
decent.
good questions.
That's decent. All right, here we go. Let's go over to some random questions here from Michael. How much money would it take to have Luke fight Dan Snyder uninterrupted for a maximum of 5 minutes on the streets of Washington, D.C.?
Much money as it would take to exonerate me legally. That's it.
Yeah, I don't really think
I do it for free as a public service.
So like in his way of thinking about this, he's basically saying how much money would it take to get Dan Snyder to agree?
Oh. I mean, if Bezos came out and was like, I'll give you 2x the highest value appraisal of the team.
To fight Luke Thomas. Yeah, on Morning Combat. Yeah, on the street. Rocky 5 all over again. Yeah, weird question.
So like if you offered him $15 billion for the Commanders, would he take it? For that.
Real question. Here you go. This will define who you are as a man, okay? Because it's a lot easy to talk that game. But let's say you are walking around DC with Tukey and your lovely wife, and it's just, your guys are out for the day. You turn the corner to go back in the parking lot to your car, and Daniel Snyder standing right there, and he just gets off a cell phone call and he's in a hurry, and you're going to cross right past him in the alley on your way to the
I would definitely tell him, fuck you.
I've done
that, dude. People do that to politicians in town all the time. It's very
So who have
common.
you done that to? Will you reveal who you've done that to?
I did it to John Bolton one time as he was walking down the street. Did it to John Bolton.
What'd you say to him? What'd you say to him, Luke?
What did I say to John Bolton? This was years ago. I think I just said, hey, fuck you.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Hey, John, fuck you. I've seen guys, do worse than that when politicians are out. Dude, I've seen Ted Cruz get heckled. I mean, that's not a big deal. You see that motherfucker get heckled all the time. But in
front of your wife and kid, you'd be like, hey, Dan Snyder, like, thanks for ruining my childhood.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, what about those rings? What about Joe Riggs, bro?
Yeah, Joe Riggs. What about Joe Riggs?
I'm thinking, wasn't there a fullback named
Riggins?
John Riggins. No, I'm thinking of who was the other back when Ernest Biner was the halfback? Who was like the power back they brought in? Gerald Riggs. There it is. Gerald Riggs.
Oh, okay. Right? I was a big Art Monk guy. But when I was a kid. But here's one thing you gotta appreciate about Dan Snyder that like doesn't exist, or I should say that is so unusual. You got to do, this is a town, you got to remember, right? Like where anyone who, like, why do politicians run for office? Oh, I want to do good for the people. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, that's a little bit of that, but mostly it's because they want to be seen and heard and praised and on TV. And they've got some insatiable internal desire to control other people and make a big show of it. They want to be seen. This is a town where like there's maximum pressure on being seen. Who's at the parties, who's at the ball, who's at the gala, who's at this place, who's at that place. It's maximum pressure. And Dan Snyder is never at any of these things because he is reviled by everybody. You've never seen him. Like, think about this. You see Bezos walk red carpets of like the Kennedy Center opening, blah, 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 or whatever. You never see Dan Snyder at these things ever. He is persona non grata. You don't have any cross paths kind of moment with him ever. And you do for like lots of other people who are out and about in town. So he is like, you know, there's a lot of people who are hated in this town, but like by every measurement, I don't know of a single person who likes Dan Snyder, Republican, Democrat, left, right, you name it. There is one thing that unites this town, and it's fuck that guy.
Wow. Wow. You know, I've told you before about like when you grow up going to the baseball games in the bleachers in Yankee Stadium, you develop, you know, or just New York in general, you develop what you believe a general attitude and demeanor that you can be at a sporting event that's normal to you, but to other people is like, the hell is wrong with you? And, you know, in the Wrigley Field bleachers, when I said those things about Jim Edmonds' mom in 2001, I got sold out by the Cubs fans and got, you know, yelled at by security and threatened to throw it out. So I got an introduction that the rest of the world isn't this way. But I mean, like, it was just rite of passage. If I went to a minor league baseball game, you would get drunk, try to go near the bullpen and try to entice one of the pitchers to fight you, right? That's just like what you did, right? So I was at the 2002 NBA draft at the theater at Madison Square Garden. With cousin Tim and I waited out all day for tickets. And, you know, when Yao Ming got drafted #1 and he was like up on the video screen with his family in China with like a video feed. And, you know, we just kept giving him the finger and like swearing him out because he wasn't American. And that was ignorant, Luke. But then when you remember Jervis Peterson from season 1 of Survivor, Jervis Patterson, remember that guy?
No.
He was the black guy in season 1 of Survivor. Real nice guy. He was randomly there in the crowd and I like called him over. I was like, yo, Jervis, come over here, man. And I was like, yo, your 15 minutes of fame just ended. Best of luck to you. You know, it's like that was a dick move, Luke. I felt really,
that was a dick move.
I
See,
felt
it's
really
one thing to
bad
heckle.
afterwards.
It's one thing to heckle politicians who get us into war, like I did, and then you just out there heckling dudes doing their job for a sports team.
Yeah, I mean, I did get Jose Mesa when he was a reliever for the Phillies to get me removed from the bleachers. At
Who's
Stadium.
the most famous person you just bumped into? No, and you can't count like something at a boxing event, like something unrelated.
And I'm sorry, by the way, to Yao Ming for cheering and booing him just for not being American. But Luke, that was a different time in my life. Okay. Okay. Outside of being at an event, outside of going to like NBA All-Star Weekend and hanging out by the hotel to try to run into, you know, you're talking about a random in-person moment.
Yeah, just like you were out with the family on a day or a vacation or something, and boom, there they are.
Man, I don't have great answers for that. When I went to the airport in 7th grade, JFK Airport, and the New York Jets were there flying commercial, and there was a long line of them outside of like the newsstand before they got in the plane, and I got to like wait in line and get an autograph from everybody. But they were probably like 3-13 that year and sucked with like Ken O'Brien and Freeman McNeil. So, you know, it wasn't like overly exciting. Yeah, I don't have a great answer. Did you randomly run into somebody as a kid? Like some people have met Hulk Hogan in an airport in like 1986, and I thought they like, you know, met Jesus or something, you know?
I don't have anything major quite like that. See, all of my celebrity encounters, I shouldn't say all, but the vast majority have happened obviously through this job.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like somebody real big that we ran into. I'd have to noodle it. I don't remember offhand.
Well, when I was flying for this job that time in first class, when I had the lay down seat with the bed, I told you I had Damon Wayans behind me and Flavor Flav 2 seats over to the left. That was pretty cool. You know,
well, this isn't so much a celebrity encounter, but I one time took a commercial flight with some WNBA team, the Lynx, I think.
Yes.
I don't know who they play for.
Minnesota Lynx. Yeah.
Minnesota Lynx. And, you know, I feel like I can say this because I have seen numerous female soccer journalists put together long threads of who the hottest men are at the World Cup. but I couldn't believe, like, dude, you know, everyone jokes about the WNBA. I couldn't believe these women were like very attractive, like numerous versions of them. I was like, wow, this is, and they were all taller than me too, by the way.
So would it have been extra native tongues or an ability to play guitar in that moment that could have gotten you to the finish line?
See, well, if I had a good French, I could have gone up to them and been like Pepe Le Pew, except hands off. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, there you go with that one. Luke, I still feel bad that I clowned Jervis like that, and that I told many minor league pitchers that they'll never go anywhere in life, and they'll end up sitting next to me. And you know what I mean? There is a time in your life when you look back, you're like, man, I was a dick for no reason, just trying to fit in, just trying to belong. You know, it's how I was raised, Luke.
We were raised in a culture of just absolutely abusing athletes. Yes,
or each other on a regular basis.
Yeah, or each other. That's true.
Let's go back to Kombat here. I've got one from Will Holden 1. He says, top 3 all-time boxers best suited for success in MMA. Now, I don't always love that question. It's like, how do we know if a boxer?
I feel like I have a decent read on this. I feel like I do.
I mean, is it based on them? That boxer has a wrestling background, so it's definitely him. Is it based on that?
In that case, it'd be Bud Crawford, right? Bud Crawford would be the answer. But I actually don't think that. Here's what I think. When I think of somebody who's got a boxing style that would translate to MMA, and then you could build the other components around, like, do they have what's a good natural ingredient to have in boxers? I'm going to say boxers who are fleet of foot, like really good footwork, and have some pop. If you're like, so for example, in a way, again, who knows how well he would get the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu? You don't know, but I feel like his striking style would work real well for MMA, given all the things he can do.
Yeah,
right?
That's fair. I just think it's a hard question to answer unless you're like, well, hey, didn't Ruguru used to train with MMA? Him, yeah. I mean, like
a little bit, but wouldn't the answer be Bud Crawford or even like a Kermit Cintron before he got completely washed? Didn't Kermit like wrestle?
He had a good enough wrestling background, but when he was throwing out the idea, that was like 2006, back when MMA was at such a still infantile process, that the idea of transitioning because you had 2 foundational skills in his case with wrestling and boxing. Back then, we would be like, yeah, let's see it, man. Nowadays, you'd still have doubts, right? Legit doubts.
Yes.
I mean, let's give credit to what Clarissa Shields is trying, but still, you'd have doubts. All right, Luke, let's hear from Right and Wrong. Christian Lee of One Championship, the new 2-division title holder. He called out Islam Makhachev this week. Any dream cross-promotion matchups for 2023? ? What would it take to get Dana to allow a cross promotion with another organization? So we are going to see cross promotion New Year's Eve between Ryzen and Bellator. So that's awesome. But Luke, let's start off with the latter part of that question. What would it take? What literally would have to happen for Dana White to entertain a cross promotion MMA fight with another organization? I'm not talking about Conor boxing Floyd. I'm talking about you know what I mean here.
It would take him not being a member of the organization and for their culture to completely change. I mean, I cannot overstate this. It's not possible. Like, why on earth would a monopoly?
Okay. The last time it almost happened, and this is the reason why it didn't happen, was when Fedor Emelianenko was secretly negotiating with UFC, right? To fight Randy Couture?
No, there was a time before that when Pride was still thriving, when Chuck went over to compete, I think the 2003 middleweight Grand Prix or whatever it was, and he got wrecked by Rampage. But
like the last time that it was like a discussion, could it happen? And it didn't, probably exactly because of that, because UFC wasn't willing to co-promote with M1 and Vidumi, as he used to call him, like Scott Coker was at the time. So yeah, I mean, they would have to either lose their market share to a level where it would be something that would make sense for them. But what about that other thing? What if there is a phenomenon? What if the Tiger Woods of MMA comes? And what if that fighter, it doesn't look at like, well, hey, I'll win all these titles elsewhere and then I'll go to the UFC. Instead says, I know who I am. I could be the all-time great. I'm an alien, right? I'm Tiger Woods meets, whomever. You got to come to me. Could somebody ever get that famous where the UFC is like, all right, we'll put our best fighter up against him in a cross promotion, 2 network pay?
Only if they then signed him. Like, only if they're like, for example, you did an interview with DeRitter. So let's imagine the UFC was like, holy shit, we got to get this guy. They would sign him and then put him against their best. They wouldn't put their best against him as a member of another organization. It's just not going to happen. I know it sounds fun. Now, I will say, probably also won't happen, but much more on the table would be Bellator versus PFL or PFL versus One or some combination therein. More peer-to-peer organization. But like Bellator and One and PFL, they're not peers with UFC. They're not. They can have divisions that are like rivalry good, like they're 205 and Bellator is obviously very, very good. That can rival or whatever. But like as an organization in totality, nobody can. It's not possible. I'm
wondering and doubting though under my fake scenario there if just being the next Tiger Woods of this sport, right? Just being, which is a lot. Like when AJ McKee beat Pitbull, there was that like feeling for a moment, like, oh my God, like how, like, is this guy, really going to be the Mayweather of MMA? Like he says he will. That's a huge win. And obviously, he's human, by the way. He's also still great. But is it enough to just be that under this scenario to get the UFC's attention, even with your scenario that, okay, we'll do one Crow promotion and then you sign with us? Or does that person also have to be a celebrity elsewhere? Do they have to be like LeBron James's son? Or do they have to be like, YouTube sensation?
Here's something to think about. Imagine if the UFC really wanted to get into China or something, or even just like Japan. I mean, they're already in Japan, but imagine if there was. So again, I'm not a pro wrestling guy, but as I understand it, Kazushi Sakuraba was a big deal for a couple of reasons. One was he was obviously very good and he was beating all the Gracies. They called him the Gracie Hunter, all this stuff. But he was equally famous in pro wrestling. And the way someone explained it to me at the time was, imagine if Hulk Hogan at his peak or something near it, because we grew up in the 80s when Hulk Hogan was like a cultural phenomenon.
When he liked black people, yeah.
Yeah, before he realized that, he was just going to bang his friends' wives and shit. But back then, he was a huge, I mean, dude, Hulk Hogan was massively popular in the 80s, okay? My understanding was Sakuraba occupied a space where he was like, imagine if Hulk Hogan went and did MMA and was actually like kicking everyone's ass at it. That's the kind of equivalent that Sakuraba was.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if the UFC was trying to get into some kind of market, China or whatever, and some organization had this guy, right? That was just, the door the key that unlocked every fucking door they could possibly want. Under that scenario, maybe something could be worked out. But even then, what I think they would do is just try and sign the guy away. I really do.
All right. To close up Right and Wrong's question, I want to ask you, what would be your dream cross-promotion matchup if no red tape existed for next year? What's the one fight with people in separate organizations that would get you the most fired up?
Nemkov versus De Ridder would be...
Wow, that's a curveball. Damn. Wow. Okay.
Nemkov versus De Ridder would be fucking awesome. That would just be a sick fight. That's a great question.
Dude, De Ridder's really good. Now
people just have no idea how good he is. He's eventually probably going to sign with UFC, and he's going to smoke some people's best fighters that they love. What about you, BC, as I noodle this through? What else stands out to you?
Stamp Fairtex versus Cheyenne Warrior Princess would be a hell of a cross-promotion fight. Look, it'd be a war. Right, Usman Nurmagomedov is going to enter this equation soon. You could assume, as much as I want.
Pitbull versus Volkanovski would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. That would be amazing.
I would favor Volkanovski to win, but Pitbull is not to be trifled with. Like, that's a good fight.
Kayla Amanda would be hella interesting.
Yep. I'd be sized. Or even Pitbull Max Holloway. I'd be sized for both of those.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Thank you, Right and Wrong. Look, I don't want to stop. Don't make me stop.
We can do a little bit more.
All right, good. Thank you. I'm glad we're willing to give this to the fans for their holiday. Here, let's go back to random here. This is from Melissa. What would be your life's soundtrack? You get to choose your top 3 songs only. How do you define what she's actually asking here, Luke?
I Come Blood, Fucked with a Knife, and Walking Death Terror.
And I Touch Myself.
Oh, excuse me. Death Walking Terror. What am I saying?
I Touch Myself by the Divinyls would also be a big part of your the soundtrack of your life, Luke.
Soundtrack of my life? Like, if I'm thinking about like the most popular songs that I listen to through big stages of my life, does that count?
Well, that's why I asked you for a definition. Does it mean like if you picked My Way by Sinatra, does that, that song defines what I did in my life? No one told me what to do, right? Fuck them. I get that. Or does it mean what you're saying? What would be the Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind, Luke, could be a soundtrack track for my life. No question about it. All right.
I don't even know how to answer this in that way. I will say, BC, let me flip this question a little bit. What is a song that you really love? Like it actually like means a lot to you that I would be surprised to learn. I have an answer for you that I think you might.
Well, we did this. This was a question of us at one of these type of videos a year ago, and we both ranked in the moment, songs that lyrics. It was worded under the way that like lyrically, what songs just move you and inspire you or whatever. What is your answer? What are you? Let me.
So the answer would be like Morrissey's obviously a jackass or whatever.
Yeah.
How Soon Is Now by the Smiths. Man, I love.
I don't know that one. I don't know that.
You don't know How Soon Is Now?
I never got into Morrissey or the Smiths. Or
Dude, I am human and I need to be loved.
I mean, I'm just discovering new wave right now. The first two REM records are insane, Luke. I mean, they're amazing.
Night Swimming by REM is also one of my favorite
dude,
songs.
I thought I knew who REM was. I had no freaking idea. The first
they're talented. Dude, they're from Athens, Georgia. And Athens, Georgia is like it's not quite right, but it's a little bit like it's like Austin, Texas 10 years ago. It's got a music scene and like all of this like, cultural stuff happening in this little hub inside Georgia connected to the university and everything. That's where they're from. That's where REM is from. They're from Athens. Like it's dude, REM is great. They're great.
So people have to understand it was very easy our age. Now I didn't come from Georgia to hate REM because the first time I probably really knew them was that early 90s MTV commercial run where Michael Stipe's being, a champion of everything at a time where it was hard to do that. And I think some of their singles at the time that were big radio or video hits they sucked. You know what I mean? They were lame at that moment. When I was, I didn't want to hear Losing My Religion when I was 12. Now I appreciate the shit out of the instrumentation in that song and the deep message that, is about relationships, not actually about religion. But, Everybody Hurts. It was like, that's the only thing you knew of them. They were easy to hate because they, like a lot of great bands that have endured, they've gone to different lanes genre wise. But, if you're already an REM fan, you know how brilliant they are, but holy shit, those first two records they're just different, man. There's an energy to them. They don't sound of their time, even though they are, they really just sound, it's just, but, there's a track by, separately from this conversation by Ryan Adams called, Winding Wheel, My Winding Wheel, that it would be a soundtrack for me. The lyrics could move me to tears, that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm a big sap, Luke. There's a lot of great songs lyrically that can just, take me there. But, that's probably just sad, sappy stuff, I'm
post-breakup music.
There's nothing better than post-breakup music. There's nothing better than even when you're in a good spot.
Nothing worse, man.
I'm happily married, yet if I hear the perfect post-breakup song that triggers something from like 2003, you're just like, you're back in the fetal position, Luke. That's very emo of me. I know that, okay, Luke, but I try to show
what's a post-breakup song you played over and over again?
So many of them. Okay. So many of them.
My big one was, you're going to laugh at this, but it wasn't on purpose. It just kind of found, some stuff just finds you and it just sticks. Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
As a post-breakup song? I was thinking more like,
but if you think about it, it's got this, if you've ever heard it done by an orchestra, it starts off real, it's just like almost like the bass line begins to,
nobody knew heartbreak like Beethoven. You know what I mean? He knew what it was like to deal with bitches. He was on top of that. Look, that was the secret to his music. If you play it backwards, it explains why. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
okay.
Beethoven's Ode to Joy was a big one for me.
Yeah. I mean, I could name some sappy stuff, but you'd probably think I'm lamer than I already am. So let's keep this conversation moving because I'm going to lose you eventually, and then this video is going to end, Luke.
That's right. Eventually, I'm going to be like, hey, I got to go do my other job, even though I have no other job.
I got to go shit my pants or something there. Let's go over here to Amadeus XLO. Is Carl from The Walking Dead the worst character to appear in a serialized show? If not, then who? I've never seen The Walking Dead, so you're gonna have to handle this, Luke.
Okay, so I mean, again, someone who read the comics and be like, well, that's not what happened in the comics. Blah, blah, blah. Don't give a fuck. I'm not reading a zombie comic book. Fuck your life, okay? And if you did, you could have spent your time better just eating paint chips or committing murders. It would have been a better use of your time. Anyway, so I've only ever seen the show. Okay, Carl was the son of basically the main protagonist. And the main protagonist, this dude, I can't explain to you, so stressed out, so beat up from life, losing loved ones left and right. And his son was a bitch ass teenage whiner and a half. Again, they say in the comics that wasn't really the case, but in the TV show, dude, every fucking week, I would tune in and be like, please let the zombies eat this motherfucker today. please get rid of this freeloading piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Him is the fucking worst. But there was another guy early on. Now the zombies did eat his bitch ass. There was an old guy in like seasons like 1 through 3, I want to say, when they were still outside of Atlanta trying to get to the CDC. There was this old dude, and all he ever did was complain that, you know, Carl's dad's name is Rick, that Rick's plans weren't this, they weren't that, this isn't going to work. Never had a constructive solution, never lifted a glove, nothing. And the zombies ate him. I remember when the zombies ate him, BC, I was on my feet being like, yes, fucking tear this motherfucker's guts out. Fuck this guy. Finally. Fuck him. Finally.
Mikey offering Skylar from Breaking Bad as an awful
People
character.
hated Skylar. I got to tell you, I didn't love her. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think she was a great character. But I'm going to call bullshit on this one. I think people hate Skylar because they hate women. I really believe that.
Wow. What about me saying Meatball Molly during Patty Pimblett fights?
Dude, she was enjoying her. I mean, it's not for me either, but she was enjoying herself. You're just a hater.
Just joking with you right there. But yeah.
Did you never see, bro? Hold on, back up a step. Did you never see Breaking Bad?
So my good friend Eric Raskin from the Showtime boxing podcast, Raskin and Mulvaney, he and Bill Detloff, another great boxing writer, podcaster, they did a podcast for every single, I think, Breaking Bad episode. So I was like, I love their podcast work together. So I wanted to do that. So I got all hyped up. I'm like, I'm going to do Breaking Bad. I don't know what happened to me, dude. I watched an episode and a half, and it's not like I didn't like it, but for some reason I just felt like it wasn't enough for me where I'm ready to actually go all in and watch every single episode and listen to the podcast after each episode and just get all jacked up. Like I think I just finished watching The Wire from start to finish for like the third time.
The Wire is a hard act to follow.
So I was like, I'm ready for the next drug. Let's do it, you know? And I probably still owe it.
Listen, I'll say this. Breaking Bad, The Wire is a hard act to follow. It's a really hard act to follow. But Breaking Bad's good, dude. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. My wife really enjoyed it. It's probably my favorite show that my wife and I watched together.
Yeah.
We were sad when it ended. And here's the thing. It's like, dude, Skylar was annoying, but she was like trying to hold the family together while this guy was out there just cooking meth. And, you know, and he like she was trying to get in the way of that in ways she didn't quite understand. Like nothing ever made sense to her. But like in the end, she cheated on him. Oh, that's right. She did cheat on him. Yeah, but dude, he was an absent dude. Walter White. People want to make Walter White to be some hero. Walter White was a bad person. He was a bad father. He was a bad husband. He tried to put money together for them, which I think they got very little of in the end, and maybe nothing in the end. He eventually abandoned them and then fucking died. Like here, the true story of Breaking Bad was this guy who had been shit on in life and didn't get the big breaks he deserved, got a cancer diagnosis, and then decided he wanted to cook meth or stumbled into cooking meth, and then realized it would be lucrative and did that as a way to take care of his family. But he turns from that into just a drug kingpin who would just kill anyone who got in his way and turn into a bad person. And he ran over his family in the end. So in the end, Skylar was annoying. She was annoying, but she got fucked over. Like the character got majorly fucked over by a guy who was not a good person.
Who's a more annoying character for you? Steve Urkel, Kimmy Gibbler from Full House, or Jar Jar Binks from episode 1?
Dude, Jar Jar Binks, I mean, they should have just dropped a nuclear bomb on the Gungans and called it a day.
Wow, that's harsh, Luke. I stand by the Gungans. They were redeemed. They were warriors, okay? You know what I'm saying? We got introduced.
No, they're underwater tadpole freeloaders.
Yo, when it was time to throw down, they were Chewbacca-like. True or false?
I mean, sort of. They didn't have that Chewbacca about itness.
They also showed up.
In fairness, BC, not many do.
I maybe it was the factory town and the river that ran through it.
Mikey is saying that Skylar turned the son against Walter White. No, Walter White turned the family against himself. Not true. No, I don't agree with that at all.
Would you throw
Walter White was fun as a character to follow, but he was a really bad person and a really bad parent. Like,
would you throw Jay Aaron from the show Morning Kombat on here on this question at all? Would you consider that?
Yeah, but like he's not the worst character. He's just the least relevant.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep it going here from Joel FC 82. Honestly, can't understand BC liking Wakanda Forever. It's awful. Thor: Love and Thunder was 20 times better. What movie have you guys hated that everyone loved, and vice versa? What have you loved that everyone hated? That's a cool question. I like that. Let's see here, Luke. Is there a great movie that's like revered? I mean, Dirty Dancing. Dirty Dancing sucks, man. Women think that's the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, Dirty
They think
Dancing
it's like a
blows
prequel to Pretty Woman or something. No. Okay, that
Dude,
guy was
so my senior year in high school, and I had like my first like real serious. I had girlfriends before, but like it was my first like long term one. She made me go to like when they re-released it in theaters in 1998. And I had to go watch that fucking shit in the theaters. Oh my god, what a nightmare that was.
I mean, Schindler's List wasn't pleasant.
Okay, wasn't designed to be a romantic comedy.
Yeah, wasn't yeah, there you go. There you
I mean,
go.
it is unpleasant in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, what my answer would be is
$1 Million Baby's the real answer here. Also, I told you that I walked out or I stopped watching Natural Born Killers was a little too much.
oh, Natural Born Killers is great.
Maybe I took it too seriously at that age, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's an art movie, right? I mean, you got to take it for what
satire.
it is.
I get it. It's a satire. It was just
Well, it's not
sick.
satire so much as it's commentary in a certain way, bizarre commentary.
Right.
You know what? I'll be honest. I did not love this movie, but I liked it. I definitely liked it, and no one else did, which was The Last Jedi. So episode, what is that? 6 of the middle one of the new 3.
8.
What am I saying? 6. Yeah. What the fuck am I talking about? 6 was Return of the Jedi.
So 9
Yeah,
blew. 8. 9 sucked. That's where.
Oh, the Rise of Skywalker is utterly unwatchable.
Dude,
shit.
7 doesn't hold up as well as it did the night it came out in the theater, but that theater experience for 7.
Dude, every time people make this mistake, they made it recently with this new movie Barbarian that I saw, where they're like, oh, the movie has plot holes. And it's like, yes, of course it does. It has plot holes. But you forgive plot holes if the director and then the writers are trying to actually have some intelligent commentary beyond the scope of what the plot can naturally deliver to you. You have to make that concession a little bit. And they did. In The Last Jedi, the thing that I really loved about it, that I really enjoyed about it, was that finally someone was like, dude, all this Jedi shit, just fucking bury it. It's the past. Be done with it. Through Kylo Ren. That's when Kylo Ren, because Kylo Ren sucked in episode 7, A New Hope. He was an emo piece of shit, crying loser who just offed his dad.
And he couldn't beat Rey in that sword battle at the end.
Yeah, and he couldn't beat fucking Rey, who had like 5 minutes of Jedi training.
In Finn with no Jedi, no midichlorians, was kind of.
Dude, Darth Vader would have ripped that guy into 2 pieces, like
with his mind, with his schlong. Did Darth Vader retain a schlong, or do you think that he lost that in the transaction?
They probably gave him like a robotic fucking 9-incher just out there hammering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here's the point I want to make, dude. The Jedi shit is so tired. It is so old. It is so over.
Oh, stop it! You just
dude. You can't keep recycling these same stories over and over and over again. And someone was finally willing to say, be done with it, burn it, get rid of the past. That was one thing I liked about it. The other one, which I thought was actually a very salient point, was when he burned the Jedi Temple, which is like, dude, in uncertain times, institutions won't save you. They will fail around you too. There is no certainty. There is no security. None of those things they're just figments of your imagination. They don't really exist. And they went with that. And that's uncomfortable and that's not fun and it's hard to watch. So like the part about, you know, Princess, or I should say Queen Leia or whatever, Emperor Leia, whatever she was, you know, in space, getting herself back on the plane.
That sucked.
That was fucking stupid. That part is stupid. I can't defend that. I won't defend that. But the parts about getting rid of the Jedis, moving from it, and institutions failing around you, I fucking love that. Someone finally took a risk with Star Wars, and a big one, and it didn't pay off, but I thought it was great.
I do say I still like 7 and 8. I think that I overvalue them when they first came out. Then I watched them enough to see the holes in them, and they're not perfect, but they're okay. They're okay.
7 is basically fine. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
it's episode 4 all over again.
7 is the most nostalgic one on purpose. I get it. It's basically like redoing episode 4, you know, advancing it in a Cobra Kai type way, just redoing the same themes. But
right,
yeah, 9 sucks, man, and 2 sucks too. I mean, come on,
dude. 9 sucked so bad. I actually saw it with my in-laws, and we walked out of the theater, and I was like, dude, what did you think about that? And they were like, oh, we loved it. And I was like, I wanted to get a divorce from my wife just to stick it to them for that opinion. So I was
Pepe,
like, no, fuck you guys. No. Like, from Colombia. Like they were here on vacation. And they're wonderful people. I'm obviously joking, but like I was like, are you doing a bit here? Like you can't possibly think that was good. They just wanted to see, you know, Chewbacca and lasers and shit, you know. So
Luke, I got a soccer one for you since it's World Cup time. All right, and Messi just lost 2-1 to the Saudi Arabians. Wow.
I saw that. I was like, what the fuck?
This is from Lee Carrick, 14. What would be your dream non-combat sports sporting final to attend, including tournaments, teams, and venue? For example, AC Milan versus Inter Milan in the Champions League final at the San Siro. San Siro.
It wouldn't happen because, well, it could happen, but there's nothing on the horizon about it. I would love to go see Real Madrid play a Champions League final in their home stadium, which is, very not really possible, but in the Bernabeu is what it's called. I would love to fucking go to something like that. But I will tell you, BC, he asked non-combat sports related. There is one itch inside combat sports that I have not scratched that I really want to go. I want to go to what Morrow calls the Punch Bowl. What's it called now? The Home Depot, whatever the name of it?
Dignity Health Sports.
Dignity Health Sports. Yeah, they've changed the name a million times in Carson City, California. Man, I got to tell you, that is
Carson,
on my
California.
bucket list. Huh?
Yeah, it's Carson, California.
Did I say Carson City? I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm off my rocker today, but that I want to go to that one. I really like that's a bucket list thing for me.
You have to do that. It was like my pilgrimage to Wrigley Field in 2001. You in for a day game, shirt off. You have to do it. Combat sports related, I got to be Wembley Stadium for a major boxing match. That'd be I mean, 90,000 people there. That'd be incredible. I don't know if I have. Do I have a non-combat sports dream? I mean, dude, nobody's going to turn down like the World Cup or any of these super soccer tournaments that you love. I mean, the atmosphere probably is the most intoxicating thing ever. I mean, dude, when I went to some really big Penn State games in the late 90s, early 2000s, when they were ranked, that was some of the most intoxicating shit ever, Luke. I don't know.
But I'm not dying to go. I mean, I like tennis, but I'm not dying to go. I like baseball. I'm not dying to go. Even the Super Bowl, it's too, I guess if the Commanders were in it or something, I'd feel different or whatever. But in general, like that's.
What about like Olympics 100-meter dash final or something like that?
Oh my God. I told my wife about this. There's no way to make it work because I can't make it. Dude, and you're going to laugh at this or you're going to mock it. I don't care. This wouldn't be like bucket list, but I really want to go. The World Championships this year, in fact, in a couple of weeks, are actually in Bogota, Colombia for the Olympic weightlifting World Championships. And all of the major lifters are going, including my favorite lifter currently, Lasha Talahadze from Georgia. He is going to be going over to Bogota to compete. And I told my wife, I really wanted to go, but we just couldn't make it work. I would love to go to something like that. Okay.
Mikey's shouting out that SEC football, just insanity. I would agree. I think if any of us who haven't went to an SEC game would probably,
So I've been to, now this is ACC, or maybe they've moved. I can't even tell anymore because of all the conference shifting. But when I was a kid, I saw FSU in Tallahassee play. God, who did they play?
Damn, that's got to be fun.
I can't remember, but it was a completely sold out thing and it was crazy as shit. And that was pretty cool.
I mean, when you do big time college football, like when I saw 109,000 people on homecoming when Penn State was ranked number 2 and undefeated, like that's just a different level. I mean, I've done good seats at Knicks playoff games, like in the 2000 season. That when they came back from 18 down in Game 6 against the Heat, that was even though I'm not a Knicks fan, that was something like you'll never forget what that felt like. I would already bet anything soccer related probably takes that to another level because it's life or death for most countries. So yeah, I'd love to attend all that and feel that. Also, I never got to see like Duke UNC at Duke. That could be something that
which even now doesn't mean the same thing. But when I was a senior in college in 2002, and I've talked about it before, Battier, Boozer, Dunleavy, that whole crew, Jay Williams, to go and watch them down in North Carolina play their essentially cross-state rivals. Fuck, that would have been great.
Yeah. I pretty much feel like every answer is either college football or soccer, though. Those seem to be the two like. Need to inject this in my veins for non-combat. Indeed, right there. All right, let's wrap this up here, Luke. Let me see if there's anything else doing good here. From $5 footlong. Wow. BC, what is an artist or album you really enjoy, but yet know and think Luke hates?
What are you planning for the Jan 6 anniversary?
Luke, do you want to lead off with Jan 6? What are you planning for is that the 2-year Jan 6 or 1 year? Where are we at?
I don't even know anymore. I can't, dude. I can't keep track of anything in my life.
Since we started MK, it's one long year, right? Because that was mid-COVID, which was weird enough. It's just been one year.
I'm so glad you said that. I feel exactly the same. I feel exactly the same way. It's just one day bleeds into the next, man. They really do. So what's an artist or album I enjoy that or think Luke's gonna? Well, that's up to you.
I know. I'm trying to think of that. I mean, a lot of what I love. I bet you
most of BC's record collection I would burn.
Like Luke, I just picked this up for $2. So Van Morrison did a live album right at the peak of his powers in '74. It's called what is it? It's Too Late to Stop Now.
Didn't Van Morrison get in trouble once because he did an entire show with his back turned to the audience?
Oh, he's a long time cantankerous dick. That's why people hail this concert so much as as arguably the greatest live album in rock history that I didn't even know about, because this was like the most amiable he ever was, and he was willing to be a showman. Dude, this double record in the last 2 days has just blown. And I'm already a Van fan. I've got all the great ones right on vinyl already. Dude, this is so damn great because he mixes all the genres together, does each song differently than the album at a different pace and timing, but yet just performs the shit out of it in terms of improvisation. I bet you would appreciate that. Like there is. I don't think
you misunderstand me a little bit. Like, dude, a good musician is a good musician. Like, he's a very good one. Like, I'd be okay with that, dude. One of my favorite records, this is true, was when I've listened to it on numerous times over the years. Stevie Ray Vaughan performing at Carnegie Hall.
Oh yeah, dude.
I mean, you got to get the fuck out of here with that. That's just a genius at work. I mean, dude, it's unbelievable.
There's a show. I used to have the DVD. It's Stevie Ray Vaughan live at the Elmo Cambo, which I think is in Elmo Combo. I think it's in Toronto. It's a club. He just does a live performance like right at the peak of his powers in like '83, basically. Dude, there are moments that you're like, am I higher than I think I am? That there's an eight, like there's an eight. It's like the end of Total Recall when the guy breaks out his lizard arm. I mean, there's things he does on that are just they're Hendrix like, and that's like saying they're godlike.
Let me ask you this: name a concert you just walked out of. You were like, "Fuck this."
But this is the funniest and saddest story ever. Okay, so my buddy went to Manhattan College in the Bronx, and I used to go there every weekend. Right, I was always there.
I like how Manhattan College is in the Bronx, but okay.
Yeah, in Riverdale. Shout out to Ed for that. And
I dated a girl in Riverdale.
Oh wow! Did you smash?
I did. Yeah,
okay.
we dated for a while. I mean, it was a romantic thing.
And so this is like fall. This is probably like '98. And we're there for like whatever basketball opening night. What do you call that thing? Remember what's that night called? Like it's like Halloween night when it's college basketball, Midnight Madness. There you go.
Yeah.
We went to Midnight Madness at Manhattan College, right? Who cares? I had a jersey T-shirt made with my name back on the back of it. I got so drunk I was out there in the layup line with the guy. I mean, it was out of control. Luke, okay. That night, as we're on our way to the bars, they're like, "Yo, CNC Music Factory is performing tonight." And I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like, yeah, they're over there at the auditorium, but like no one's going to it. And this is '98. CNC Music Factory had their two big hits in what, like 91, 92, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that far removed. I'm like, dude, we have a chance to see CNC Music Factory right now? They're like, yeah, free tickets. It's free. You want to go? Luke, I approached imagine an elementary school gym. You know how small that is with a stage on the end of it? You know how small that is, right? It's like real small. I approached what was the equivalent to that, heard sweat, baby, let the music take control, let the rhythm move you. And I'm like, yeah, dude. Walked in. There's no fans there. There's 3 kids standing against the back wall, laughing and kind of pointing at the stage. There's one person standing in front of the stage who was security, and it's CNC Music Factory. Shout out, what's the guy's name? Freedom Williams. Just going ham. Luke performing like there was nobody there because there wasn't, or performing like he's at Madison Square Garden, dripping sweat, just going after it. And I walked in and I was so excited to be there to see them, and was overcome with the sadness of that moment. Like, oh my, and like the only people that were there were like obviously heckling, like, can you believe this shit? And then we just laughed at them and turned around and walked away. And while I don't feel as bad as I do for the Yao Ming and Jervis Patterson reveals of when I was an absolute head, but yeah, I walked out, Luke. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen. That's like 5 years removed from their absolute world renowned peak. And they were playing to nobody at Manhattan College in the Bronx. Thank you.
So I got 2 concerts that I've left. One, I really regret. One was just the best decision ever. So one I regret was I went to go see Army of the Pharaohs. If you don't know who that is, it's like a super group of all the underground rappers that I tend to like. So it's, Esoteric and Apathy and Vinnie Paz and Self-Titled and blah, blah, blah. But they were the headlining act. So, dude, doors opened at 7. Concert started at 8. This was at the 930 Club in D.C. Okay, so I was on U Street getting beers with a friend of mine, blah, blah, blah. We roll in at 8 and, we're like, we're a bit early. Let's just wait and we'll come back. And so blah, blah, blah. We got drunk and then we went there at 11. Okay, 3 hours fucking later. And they still were not playing yet. There was like multiple acts that were still yet to go on the fucking bill, including like a guy I didn't even like named Mr. Liff. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Waited 30 minutes. Then another group that came out that's part of the AOTP but separate called Outer Space. And then they started their set. And I'm like, no, fuck this. This is ridiculous. I'm not waiting 3.5, 4 hours for this band to fucking come. When do they think we're going to go home? So I just left. But then I tried to see them multiple times since then, and all of those concerts got canceled. So I really regret it. The one I don't regret was when I went to a place it used to be called the Nissan Pavilion, and now it's called Jiffy Lube Live. It's out in Bristol, Virginia. And every time the band goes there, it's always like, we're going to Washington, D.C., bitch. It's 2 hours from the city in the middle of nowhere. So when you leave, dude, you're going to wait another hour or 2 just getting out of there. We go to see, my wife begged me because she really wanted to see Motley Crue. I was like, all right, we'll fucking go see Motley Crue. First of all, I mean, the fact that I didn't get lice is just incredible. Number one. I mean, the people there, the dregs of society. Let's just be quite honest about that. And then, dude, the sound. Now, my wife says she has seen the band a number of times, and she even agreed with me. The sound was horrific. We don't know if it was just their equipment or what the cause was, because we'd been to that venue several times before and it never had an issue. They were so fucking bad. The sound was so terrible. And then it started to rain. And I looked at my wife. She's like, they've been playing for 30 minutes. I'm like, we are wasting our fucking time. And so we finally left. Turns out that the rain picked up way worse after we left. And there was flooding in the parking lot. And cars had to get towed out of there the next day so the shit could drain out and they could go get them. One of the best calls I've ever made in my life. Bang, bang.
Luke Thomas waits for no man. Luke, final question here. This one's from a Twitter user, CJ Hilson. Why is Luke so damn salty all the time? Who hurt you, man? How much time do we have for this, Luke?
I'll just say this, man. I don't know why it's this way, and I don't necessarily prefer it to be this way. I don't necessarily think the way I do it is better, or the way in which I see life is better. However, I mean, a fish can't cry about its gills. That's how it breathes. Yeah.
Yeah. Things
that normally interest the average person, I've always found stupid and boring. And I will say something else about this too. People in this day and age, you hear a lot about like, we want someone to be real, be real. Get the fuck out of my face with that shit. If there is anything I have learned, it's that people love fraud. People love fiction, and not like fiction as in like designated fiction, as in fiction that masquerades as fact. People love being lied to. They love all of this shit. And if you think that's not true, then ask yourself why there's so much of it in the world. It's because people love it. They respond to it. They eat it up.
Talking about fake news?
Not just fake news, but like old sayings that make no sense, or inherited customs you're just supposed to keep, using or whatever. All of these things have never made sense to me at all. And the reasons why we do them have never made sense to me at all. And this is very true in the fight game, where it's always smoke and mirrors and people are exaggerating and lying. People love lies. They love bullshit. And I've just never been that guy, man. I just can't go along with it. I can't unsee it. And so it puts me on the outside looking in all the time, man.
Okay. So it's not that you're hurt. Well, it's maybe that you're always hurt, right? Because you are who you are. You know your own truth, and anything else, can S a D.
Can ask the biggest of D's. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, who are we talking about? Shaq? I mean, what are we doing here? You know?
You mean the Prince of Persia from Canada?
Yeah, no, not that Shaq. Wow, that we effed around and did 90 minutes for the people. That's not bad.
That's what we do. Overtime,
Okay.
always.
Corey OT Anderson. Thank you, folks, for your questions. Thanks for listening to our reveals about how shitty we used to be before we evolved as human beings.
Yeah, I've definitely been terrible.
Yeah, I mean, we all have. It's just, it's just what it is right there. But I don't know what else to say here, Luke. What else do you want me to say?
Thank you to everyone who watched. Don't drink and drive this Thanksgiving weekend. Please don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Be responsible. Get an Uber, get a taxi, whatever you got to do.
You have more options now to not drink and drive than ever before.
Right. Before you kind of had to wing it, a little bit. Now you don't. So don't do that shit. And thank you for watching. And we should also know, obviously, we still have the month of December left, which should be a good month for us. But on top of that, 2023 looks to be a strong year. So let's keep it in high gear.
Yeah, let's keep banging. Let's keep bringing it. And you guys keep supporting us.
Let's keep vaping.
Downloading our content as Luke vapes. Thank you to Mikey Mormile, our producer, who could also be vaping. It's possible. I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that right now he's
our
vaping.
Bong hits vaping, because it definitely does that.
Thank you, dear listener. I hope you enjoyed some family time this weekend. And just, focus on what really matters. Okay. Morning Combat. Yeah, obviously like and subscribe. There you go. No, your health, your mental health, your family, you can get out of this ditch you're in, because we all been there. There's probably a few more ditches left for me before the final one where I don't come out of, but you can come back from this. Okay. Spring follows winter inevitably. Believe that. That's some truth right there. For Luke Thomas, my name is Brian Campbell. Thanksgiving is the best holiday. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you didn't hurt anybody during Black Friday. But thank you for watching. 2 more words. We out.
Established titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts.
Yes, Professor Salt and Pepper. It's a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English.
Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location on your land.
Here's the cool part. Established Titles plants a tree with every order and works with global charities such as One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, all to support global reforestation efforts.
Cool perks are you could officially change the prefix of your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit cards or even things like your plane tickets. They even have a couples pack that come with adjoining plots of land.
Well, look, here's the deal, MK viewers. The first 200 people purchasing a title pack using our link will effectively be next to our plot within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a Lord or Lady with us, we can build our own little morning combat kingdom.
Established Titles makes an amazing last-minute gift, and they are actually running a Black Friday sale, their biggest sale of the year. Plus, if you use the code COMBAT with a K, you get an additional 10% off. So go to establishedtitles.com/combat to get your gifts now and help support the channel.
Listen to the King of Connecticut. He tells you that's establishedtitles.com/combat for an additional 10% off. Yeah.
Oh, man, just got my driver's license, but with my credit score, how am I ever going to have enough money to buy that sweet ride? Whoa, who are you?
Believe it or not, I'm actually your coworker from the future.
Hey, far out, man.
You're stuck in the past if you think you actually can't build your credit score.
I'll be honest, that's kind of hard, right?
It's not. All you have to do is download the MoneyLion app and get started by, let's say, applying for a credit builder loan.
A credit builder loan? Does that mean I can get some money and build my credit all at the same time? That sounds a little confusing.
Well, in fairness, you look confused about many things. But the good news is, it's actually pretty simple. It helps build your credit when you repay the loan on time. The beauty, of course, is that you could use the money to start paying for the car or some of these pathetic dirty mags you like.
Wow, fresh dirty mags from this decade?
Yeah.
Hey, what's this MoneyLion app?
It's the only money app you're ever going to need. You can get instant cash advances, hacks from people who know how to money, or access offers from some of MoneyLion's partners, like on the insurance you're going to need for that sweet ride you're trying to get.
Right. So I should ask my parents to get it for me, right? Should I use their fax machine?
No, you can do it on your phone, and actually you're old enough to do it yourself, even though you're a pathetic loser.
Thanks, man. How do I dial for this app?
Well, you actually just need to use one of these kinds of phones, and all you have to do is search for the MoneyLion app in the App Store, or you can scan a QR code.
Great. I can use this for investing, building credit. I bet MoneyLion can help me get that keg for the Moon Tower this weekend.
Probably, yes, but you'll need an ID for that.
Hey, man, can you do it for me? No offense, dude, but you kind of look old and washed.
I'm trying to do you favors that actually improve your life, so no.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I'll trade you for this herb.
This is oregano.
Oh, man, I paid $40 for that.
Right. That's why I'm here to help.